So again, my name is Chris Carpenter. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for letting us know where everyone's calling in from. It's always cool to see who's taking the time to join us, and especially thank you to those who are joining us at some odd times of your day. So thank you. I work in the marketing team for Venture for ClimateTech. We have Jacqueline Amable with us. She's our managing director for Venture for ClimateTech. Jeff Prosserman and Lacey Reddix are alum for our program. Jeff's the CEO and co-founder of Voltpost, and Lacey is the CEO and founder of Olokun Minerals. We'll be hearing more from them shortly, and we also have Devin Sandin here. He's our operations manager. He will be, he's kind of our our knows all, end all, be all. So it keeps us all honest here. So he'll be present in the chat if you all have any questions. This is being recorded, so don't worry if you missed something or if you want to rewatch it. We'll be sending out this deck. I'll be sending out here. If you register through the Eventbrite, you'll be getting an email with this recording and this slide deck. So no worries there. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Jackie Amable.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to be having some of our alum here to talk about their experiences in our program, as well as just give you a bit of context. So before this, I was at Techstars, managing from Canada through Argentina, and was a founder myself for 7 years. Raised capital, shipped products in the hardware space, loved it, and really happy to be here now. So I just want to give you a bit of my background. Now, as for Venture for ClimateTech, we describe ourselves as the earliest stage program for climate tech founders, right? We want to help meet and identify really promising founders at their earliest days and help them get, the first capital in the door, helping them organize for their first prototypes and different pieces such as that. So you'll get to hear of our founder stories. But just a tiny overview of our program. We have other webinars where we go deep into the program, but just want to make sure we give you a taste of what it is, and then let you hear from Jeff and Lacey. Next slide, please. This is the team. You have everybody here except Shantae. She's our Director of Climate Investments and Partnerships. So she helps make sure that we build relationships with all the incredible investors, both angel and VC in this space, as well as she's our go-to-market specialist. So she worked with lobbying groups to help startups, nail these partnerships with, government entities, et cetera. As you know, many of the technologies in the climate tech space require these relationships with government organizations and things like that in order to test their product, which Jeff and Lacey will definitely be able to touch on a bit. Next slide, please. So program highlights: we recruit high impact founders and innovations. We take a 3-phase approach. What we mean by that is our program is 6 months part-time, but it's broken into 3 very distinct phases. Mainly to make sure that it's still a good fit moving forward, but also to help switch those gears. So the first phase is really focused on, connecting you to mentors, connecting you to our network, and we work with the Pollution Prevention Institute to help you do your carbon math, essentially, right? What is that impact that your technology is going to have if it's able to scale commercially? So that way, when you go and talk to investors, you can say, hey, this is the impact I'm going to have, but not only is the impact that I'm going to have, but here it has been validated by an external source. You then present to us and our funders, NYSERDA, and we decide at that point whether you kind of keep moving forward to the second phase. We recruit globally with the New York State lens. So anybody around the world is able to apply. The program is fully virtual, but we are looking for technologies that can have an impact in New York State. New York State is a very diverse state, so there's a lot of different technologies that it makes sense. But I always say, like, for example, if your technology is meant for a tropical climate, New York State is probably not going to be the right fit. You do not have to be incorporated, and no co-founder is required. So we help you. One of the areas in which we like to support is in helping you build out your team. And also, if you need support with those early legal aspects, we help with that as well. So really, we do, pride ourselves in supporting that talent identification and recruiting, along with that market intelligence. And we provide up to 100K non-dilutive funding throughout the program. And then ideally, we're looking for angel pre-seed stage companies. What that means is you could have raised, substantial funding that's non-dilutive, so through grants. But if you've raised a lot of capital from private investors, this program is probably too early for you. And so, yes, I talked a bit about the 3 phases. The first phase, we accept about 10 teams. We do that customer discovery, the market opportunity pitches to advance. In second phase, the 10 teams receive their first 25K non-dilutive capital for getting into that second phase, and 10K for a 35K value total of reimbursement for different activities. So it has to be that 10K has to be aligned with a clear business milestone. And then we help you prepare for investor pitches and we exit that stage. And in the third phase, 10 teams work towards opportunities for up to 65K in follow-on funding with a total 100K opportunity with a focus on differentiated learning. So at that point, phase 3 is fully differentiated and we're helping our founders figure out where they're going next and close funding with that follow-on funding requiring a 2-to-1 investor match. That's what we say up to 100K. So it kind of depends on which milestones you hit when. And just really quickly, some timelines. Our applications are open now, so thank you for joining us. The applications close on March 4th. We're going to take about 30 companies through the bootcamp process. That's a week-long process where you get a taste of our curriculum and our mentors and meet investors. And then from there, we take the top 20 teams to the cohort selections where you're interviewed by our board members. If you want to learn more about our board, they're phenomenal. Please check out Venture For ClimateTech under forclimatetech.org, and you can look under team and you'll see our board members there. We will select the cohort by May 3rd and kick off the cohort by May 9th. And that's it for now. So we're going to jump in because I want to have Jeff and Lacey get to really share their experiences. First question for, whichever one of you want to start first, but how did you describe yourself and your company at the beginning of the program? So like company size, funds, and how would you describe yourself now?
Do you want to go first or?
Go for it.
Okay, and just a little bit. So I'm Lacey Reddix, founder and CEO of Olokun Minerals, and a little bit about Olokun Minerals too. So we extract valuable metals and minerals from salty, mineral-rich wastewater streams and create products that can be used for concrete to build infrastructure, fertilizers for agriculture, and batteries for electronics and vehicles. So that's kind of what we do. And really, when I started, I was a solo founder. There was not, I didn't really know anything about starting a business. I knew that my background's in the water space. I have a civil engineering degree with a concentration in water resources and environmental engineering. And I'd worked in the water space for a few municipalities, the city of Jackson, Mississippi, which is where I'm from, and the city of Atlanta, where I was a watershed program manager. And so I knew the space that I was going into, but I didn't know how to start a business. And so I think when I started, it was more so being a solo founder, not really knowing anything about how to start a business. And through this program, I gained the skills needed in order to kind of take off safely. Now we have a team of 4. We were incorporated in January of 2021. And we also have different partnerships in the works that a lot of those relationships we got through the Venture For ClimateTech program.
Thank you, Lacey. And yeah, it's been exciting to see your growth. You're sort of the epitome of like sole founder coming in and being like, I know I can move quickly. And you did. Jeff?
Yeah, great to meet everybody. And thanks for joining. Hope you all apply to the program as we got a lot of value out of it. My name is Jeff Prosserman, and I'm the founder and CEO of Voltpost. And we were really in the early days when we applied to the program. Give a bit of background on what we do. Essentially looking at the EV charging space, especially that in cities and the lack of charging. We're looking at converting existing lamppost infrastructure into electric vehicle chargers and build out a public charging network in cities to provide convenient access to drivers and significantly reduce the cost, timing, and footprint of charger deployment. Obviously, we're riding the tailwinds of what's happening on the public and private side, and really excited for the year ahead, and have seen quite exciting growth from the Venture For ClimateTech experience. So really, when we started, it was coming out of a research paper that I wrote while at Columbia University in a master's program for sustainability management. Prior to that, I was the director of innovation at Samsung in New York City, so led product development teams, and really just saw that we really need many different climate solutions developed, and transportation and the reduction of emissions being one of those aspects, that there needed to be a better solution for cities to get broader adoption, to accelerate adoption. So came with a bit more than an idea, but not a company, when we first started talking to Jackie and the team. And ultimately, in validating the market opportunity with my two co-founders, which I had at the time, which we were just in that early customer discovery, but ultimately in joining the accelerator, going through the program, built out a pretty broad network of advisors, some early stage investors that came on board, recognizing that there is a clear opportunity, a refined opportunity to what the initial idea was to where we landed. And then really coming out of that, closing a pre-seed round of financing, where we now have, from the original 3 of us, about 10 people working full time between New York, San Francisco, and a few other places remotely. So been great, could not recommend the program more highly, and we'll do whatever I can to support growing the community.
Thank you, Jeff. And that was an exciting trend, right? We saw teams grow on average 2-3x in size. So that talent identification, support, and hiring is often right at this stage. You're like, well, how do I hire when I have no money? And we help you figure that out, as well as raising those funds. So again, congrats, Jeff, on your round. And Lacey, I know you have some stuff that you've had in the works as well out in California. So when, and I know this is like taking you way back, right? Like when you first were coming into the program, what help were you looking for with your business? How did that, and maybe did that change throughout the program, or did it meet your expectations?
You want to start, or you want to dive in?
Here, you can go first, and then I'll go after you, Jeff. And then we can just alternate.
Sure, sounds good. So I would say at the beginning of the program, it was just coming out of a research paper, seeing a market opportunity, but really not having much more than that early concept idea phase. So it's never too early to apply to a program like this. If you're just in that early stage, just the concept alone of wanting to take action for the climate crisis and try to do something about it, it's worth at least putting the paperwork together and seeing if it makes sense for you. But really starting with that initial customer discovery, talking to municipalities, private partners, and really identifying what we thought the opportunity was, and then what customers were telling us, and refining what the product design was before we started to spend money to develop the prototype. And then we started to ramp up by the summer timeframe as we got through the initial customer discovery phase and refinement of the design to building the prototype system, and ramping up a bit more of the team, closing some initial financing. And really it was a bit of a rolling momentum or rolling close on the financing as well, of just getting more people involved, getting more mentors on board, many coming through the introductions and connections made through the program. I would also say that just the support, Lacey is a great example, but the cohort itself, the community coming together, really there's nobody more helpful in this early stage development than other people going through the trenches in their own way with you. So building that network is extremely valuable. And then really, I guess where things landed is just a feeling of tremendous momentum coming out of the program, with having a platform to communicate what we're doing with the support of a broader network. So you can start with a person or 2 or 3, and then grow into a team and hopefully close some financing and build a product along the way, at least the early stages of that. Just a really supportive group to do that with.
And I agree with what Jeff said. I think when I started coming in, I I thought my main focus was going to be on how do we get venture capital funding, because that's kind of what my mindset was around how do you get a startup off the ground. I thought I understood my customer because I came from that industry. I think through the program, I realized that there was a higher need or a larger need to focus on customer discovery. And the program really helped to understand how to organize that process to make it as valuable as possible. It also allowed me and our team to recognize that there was more funding available, especially for climate-based companies outside of just venture capital. So we were able to access non-dilutive funding, which was a new term for me, and then also to understand debt financing and just what our financing options were outside of going through a traditional VC route. Also, to what Jeff said too, having the community was a surprisingly great asset to our team as well. I thought I was a little shy to be sharing our business, kind of opening up about what we were doing with other teams, but it was so valuable, not only to get insight from other team members, but also to hear what they are doing, hear what they might be struggling with, or what they might be doing right that we can learn from. So I think not only having the V4C team that's leading and helping you along was great, but also having those other teams that were involved in the program was just really, really beneficial for us as well.
And I do see some questions in the chat. We're totally going to get to them. I have a couple more questions for them, and then we're going to answer your questions in the chat. So just know we do see them. Thank you for putting them there. And so thank you for sharing that. Lacey, I wanted to ask a specific question to you, right? Like, so Jeff, you came from the innovation space, you've built hardware products, but Lacey, would you say that this is your first time prototyping? And then could you talk to a bit about maybe what you learned through the program on different ways of expediting tech by building partnerships?
Yeah, so this was our first time building a prototype, and really, though my background is in water resources, environmental engineering under civil engineering, what we were doing was really chemical engineering focused. So having a CTO or bringing a CTO on board that had that expertise was really important so that we could do our own testing in-house. But also through the program, we were able to partner with NREL, or just build a relationship with NREL, which is the National Renewable Energy Lab based in Colorado. And they have a number of scientists that specifically focus on developing tech, and that tech can be utilized by team members. So through the relationship that we built with Venture for ClimateTech, we were able to develop a partnership with NREL. And then from there, you utilize a technology or license a technology, or in the process of licensing a technology, to use a technology that they've already developed. So that was really beneficial in expediting our growth and development over the last year.
And this is a question for both of you, but what would you say was your most memorable takeaway or lesson, however you want to think about it, the thing that you won't forget?
I'll go just because I'm off mute right now. Jeff, I'll let you go. But I think the amount of times you pivot, or the idea that almost like pivots are almost inevitable. We went in thinking that we would attack two different problems related to desalination. One, the idea of how do we drive down power, or how do we create power using this brine waste stream, and then also two, how do we extract minerals? And through customer discovery, just through the process of learning your business, you realize one, that can be ambitious to try and do a lot or take off more than you can chew, but also two, it's more beneficial to be efficient and be very, very focused. So for us, the pivot was to really focus in on what are we going to start? What's going to be our step one? How do we get to a minimum viable product? And just kind of like something that came along with the process. I think for us, it was just kind of thinking that, no, we're really going to start, this is our goal, this is our vision for the future, and then realizing that that's not always realistic, and pivots are kind of inevitable.
Yeah, 100%. And I would just add that I feel that the program almost is like a personal training session, where ultimately, if you go in each week and have somebody challenging you and asking questions, and forcing you to look at the model, refine, constantly go through that feedback loop, you just come up with a sharper product vision and you don't spend money in the wrong places. So, I mean, it's easy to just jump to trying to build a prototype if you think you have the right vision or way to go with whatever it is you may be thinking of doing, but just having the discipline to go through the customer discovery process, to have a community of people where you take that feedback into consideration and just are constantly refining. Obviously, you only have so much runway, so much resources, especially at an early stage. So you want to make sure that you can leverage that in the most focused way to develop the greatest impact, to push the business forward. So really just having that cadence of regular check-ins, regular reflection, and constant refinement in that strategy, because there's where you think you're going, and then really listening to those around you, both the V4C team, the potential customers, and the mentors that come through this community, to just make sure you're putting yourself on the best path for success.
Awesome, thanks, Jeff. So I see a question here around from Serge. Thank you, Serge. On how did you guys make the prototypes? Is there a makerspace attached? So I can answer that one part. No, it's a fully virtual program. We do help connect you with resources or lab space, or can write recommendation letters if you need them for accessing certain resources like lab space. But Jeff, I know you, I think did work with a makerspace in San Francisco. So just wanted to see if you wanted to talk about how you did prototyping, especially with a fully remote virtual team.
Yeah, sure. So we are working in a makerspace in San Francisco, as Jackie mentioned. And it's really, this, taking a step back, comes to finding the right co-founders, finding people who have diverse, different skills than you. Hopefully they can add to a greater whole. And one of my co-founders I worked with at Samsung, he led industrial design, Joran Vicari. He had that practical hardware, roll up your sleeves, make the physical thing, where I was on the product management side, leading the operations and strategy of teams. So he's based in San Francisco, I'm based in New York. Unbelievably, we have not seen each other in person since starting this company, although we've known each other for years, just by nature of the pandemic today. However, essentially, he's managing a small team in a physical makerspace building the product. We were able to negotiate basically startup-friendly rates in order to access the components and equipment and space itself. But then on the East Coast, I'm based in New York with the third co-founder, Luke Myro, who I met through the Columbia Network. And ultimately, we've just been working virtually. Obviously, there's a time zone difference that we're all accounting for. So there's some early calls or late night. But in the end of the day, there was no real hurdles in getting the most out of the program by it operating virtually. I mean, frankly, it's unbelievable. We all haven't met in person. There's a few of us who have, but it definitely feels like we've developed relationships like we've seen each other many times, and much longer than a single year together.
Thank you, Jeff. Lacey?
So related to prototyping, we're working with NREL specifically to just get a prototype off the ground, but we also have access to universities. So looking at specific, I'm in Southern California, so there's UCLA, there's USC, there's also UC Irvine. There's also access to test beds. So test beds are a way for you to partner with a lab space and have somebody at the lab do the test for you if you can't get there yourself. So I would just put that out as an option. A lot of these options we found out through going through the program as well. So we didn't know this going in, how we were going to do it. I thought I was going to do it in my living room or in my backyard, just doing the test, but we were able to kind of build the partnerships that we needed in order to get actual lab space and do things in the lab.
Actually, now I remember the early days you were looking at that and doing the garage. And that's a big thing, right? Like each company in the climate tech space has very different prototyping needs. So we try to help you find and match with resources. Jeff had them built in because of his community, but with Lacey, we help source that. So every company has very unique needs, is what I'd say. So Richard, I saw your question. Can a company apply? We've already selected to a different tech to market incubator. Yes, you have to commit the time, right? So like that's really on you. But Jeff, you did our program and Clean Tech Open at the same time. If you want to speak to how you manage that.
Sure, yeah. So we were accepted into 2 accelerators last year. We decided to do both of them. It was frankly a lot to manage 2 accelerators at the same time, but we got great value out of both of them. Really, Venture for ClimateTech was first, and when we got into the second accelerator, Clean Tech Open, navigated with Jackie and team quite transparently that we were going to make this second commitment, and just made sure that there was a through line for both of the accelerators. So the key point of contact, I stayed primarily connected to this one. And then we had another person on our team who was the lead on the other accelerator. And as long as you recognize it's really just about developing relationships, you're going to get in as much as you put in, essentially, or whatever the metaphor is, cliche. In the end of the day, there's a lot that you can get from just jumping on the Zoom line. I know it feels difficult or different in the world that we're in for a couple of years now, but Jackie, Shantae, and team, Devin, everyone's here to help. And it's really just, if you put in the time, I'm sure your business will be at a better place than it started.
Thank you, Jeff. To answer the question, how's the community organized? We do chat sort of on a daily basis on Slack, but we also leverage Notion for housing the curriculum, any materials if you miss a recording or something like that, as well as the overarching calendar. And then Google Drive is like how you sort of send in any components necessary for the program. Let me see if there's any other questions because I'm scrolling down. I have a few MVPs and 1 or 2 paying customers, but we didn't spend enough time on customer discovery. So we would like to do a bit more of that. Okay, yes, like that's definitely a space, right? Like, and I, having been a founder myself, I totally understand, right? Like you have this like vision of where you think your product's going or how you're going to build it or what that process is going to look like. And then, as I would say, right, reality sets in and things take a lot longer than you expected to, partnerships, relationships. So happy to do that. Yeah, that would be cool, Serge. Let me see. I think someone's computer is just like catching language. I saw a few questions in the Q&A. So I just wanted to make sure I answered them out loud. Is the 65K matching funds non-dilutive too? Yes, all of our funding is non-dilutive. There was an anonymous question, how many teams survived each phase? We started with 11 in phase 1, 9 entered phase 2, and 8 went into phase 3. And so they each had very different reasons for why they didn't sort of progress forward, but at an early stage, that's why our program supports founders at such an early stage. There's just a lot of things that can come up, right? Whether it's an IP block or, or you're not able to have the bandwidth to meet the program needs, et cetera. So there's a wide variety of reasons, but we don't have to down select, right? So in our ideal world, all 10 teams or all 11 teams would make it all the way through, but we know that things happen. And then the proportion of hardware to software. So last year of the 11 teams, 9 had a hardware or a deep tech biomaterials component to them, 2 were software. So we do, because we provide non-dilutive capital, we believe that it is our responsibility to try to de-risk some of the harder to de-risk but higher impact technologies, right? So we don't shy away from deep tech, hard tech, biomaterials. Like those are the kind of companies that we feel like we are set up to support, as well as software companies. So we are able to look at both. But now I know I wanted to open the door if there's more. I see more Q&A coming in. So good timing. For the funding one, since you were a bit late, I'll have Devin answer that. So for big and ambitious global projects, do you provide access to top tier VCs? We do. However, right, and I think Lacey and Jeff can speak to this, when you're at such an early stage, one of the things we focus on is what is going to be your capitalization stack. So not all funding, right, should be coming directly from VCs. In fact, if you're at a pre-seed level, chances are angel investors are going to be your bigger fit, your better fit at that stage. So angel investors or non-dilutive capital. So while we do introduce you to top tier investors, a lot of that is for that long-term relationship building, because at the stage that the founders we work with, Jeff, Lacey, would you say that's an accurate representation of what your relationships were like with the VCs?
Yeah, and Jack can probably speak to this a little bit more, but at each VC is focused on a different series. So it doesn't make sense to, even though you might have access to top VCs, they might be focused on a business that's a little bit more developed than where you are, especially if you're applying to this program. So what you want to focus on are what is the funding available for where you are for your business. And so angel investing or angel investors would be your primary target, which through, I think it's stage 2 of the program, you have access to meeting those investors. Also to, again, like I cannot iterate enough the amount of non-dilutive funding available. And that's really where you want to focus, or at least start applying so that you have access to that money, because this is going to be a long process or a long journey. So you have to really think about what your cap table is going to look like over the next few years. And I think starting out with as much non-dilutive funding as possible is the route to go. But that's my take. I'll let Jeff take it from here.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, there's a lot of non-dilutive financing in the climate tech space. There's more opening up all the time. So look at all your options and do all the applications you can. In regards to the VC front, especially early stage, I think one of the great things of a program like this is it gives you visibility and a platform where you get in front of a lot of people, and it's great to establish those relationships and get on the radar. I can't even explain the amount of inbound requests of questioning even where people find you after you get into a program like this, but they find you somehow. So there's a lot of introductory calls, exploratory calls, gauging interest, understanding where they're at, what round, what type of thesis they have for their investment philosophy. And in the end of the day, you're going to speak to a lot more potential investors than investors who you're going to want to bring along on the ride for your company, as well as really partner with in the long term. So there's no exact science to what I'm saying here, other than this gives you to meet a lot of those potential stakeholders and then make the decision.
Your audio cut out, Jack.
It's more. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can. Don't know what that was. That was strange.
Got it. I would just say in the early stages, it is going to be more non-dilutive and angel investors, individuals. But it's still great to develop those early VC relationships, just so you have that on the radar.
And we do prepare you for those conversations. For a phase 1 applicant, what if you've done about a year of customer discovery and have goals that are further ahead in the process? So James, we can evaluate that on a case-by-case basis, right? So we had companies come in that had done the iCore program and had already done extensive customer discovery. We say that our customer discovery is also layered in with market intelligence, right? So people tend to do a lot of customer discovery, but then it's like, what do you do with all that discovery? How do you analyze that data? How do you then make concrete next steps for your business? So I think there's a combination of that. We'd have to better understand your unique case, but just know that, we have had, other founders come in with extensive customer discovery under their belt.
Yeah, I will say I was probably the earliest stage startup that entered. There were other startups that had been around for, I think, at least 3 years too. So there's a number of different backgrounds there.
Yeah, and we did have a company close a paid pilot, right? So we do help with those processes and those negotiations. It just depends on like where you are specifically. And a lot of, while our curriculum, we do run a cohort model, we do one-on-ones every week with each team so that differentiation and coaching and support is there, right? Because what Lacey needs is not what Jeff needed, is not what Phil or other team members needed. So we really try to hone in on what does your specific business need and where are you? Let me see. We do have access to angel communities. As you know, angel communities are very, they differ from angel to angel. So I think that is to say we prepare you for the different kinds of angel groups, but just know that, there's individual angels, there's angel syndicates, there's full angel groups. So it just really depends on the type of angel. Another question was, what would make your company ideal for the program or exclude a company? Really, we're looking for that GHG impact. And can your technology, it doesn't have to be today or tomorrow, but even if it's 10 years from now, be applicable in New York State, right? So, essentially, can New York State leverage this to help reach their ambitious climate goals? So our mission is oriented around the Climate Leadership Community Protection Act that came out of New York State. So really, we're looking for companies that have that big GHG impact or can make that case. Or if you're a software model, right, like our company Climatize, they help everyday people round up loose change in order to invest in those climate projects. So if your technology doesn't directly have a GHG impact, it should help expedite the commercialization of technologies that would in some way, shape, or form. So that's really what we're looking for, is how do we identify technologies that can help decarbonize whole industries if possible. But we have a wide variety of technologies that we accept. Let me see. I think I saw a question about how does it apply to New York State? Maybe it was under the answers, but hopefully that helps is defined, right? So it's really, New York State has a lot of different ways in which they're trying to decarbonize, but really it's like, one day, would you try to sell this product in New York State? You do not have to be based in New York. Like Lacey has been in California the whole time. You do not have to have an office in New York or commit to an office in New York. You simply have to show, because of the early stage nature, we know that your company has a lot of learning to do, but that it could apply to the New York State ecosystem. Yeah, so if your initial geography is somewhere else, that's not a problem. That's why the program is global. Because Lacey, where have you been this whole time? LA? Right?
Yes, been in Southern California.
And another founder of ours has been in Poland the whole time. So Jeff happens to be in New York, but where you are based today doesn't matter. The program is fully remote. It's more of like, does your technology make sense for New York State? I don't know if there's more questions or we answered those. Devin will answer your question on key dates and steps. Any other questions for Jeff or Lacey about their experiences? Otherwise, I'm happy to have you guys answer this sort of big final question, but why would you recommend this program to others? And sorry to put you on the spot like that.
Yeah, so I'll go first too. I think that if you think about having a startup being like a baby who's like learning how to walk, you need some kind of space, or at least I needed some kind of structure in order to like feel okay with moving to that next step. You're gonna fall no matter if you like have help or not. Like failure is part of that process, but having somebody to kind of guide you along the way is very, very helpful. Also too, there is nothing more valuable to a new company than a first endorsement. And Venture for ClimateTech was our real first endorsement. It was the first person to take a chance on us, or first organization to take a chance on us, and it opened so many doors. So having a program or being part of a program that not only gives you non-dilutive capital, gives you access to just really valuable information in the programs or the week-to-week info sessions that they have, but also just giving you the validation that you need in order to continue going, I think is really, really helpful and beyond valuable. So I think those are like the main reasons I would say definitely invest in and look into this program. I really don't see a downside. Also to the partnerships that they have with other very credible organizations. So even, after leaving Venture for ClimateTech, we got into the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator, which was another incubator closer to where we are in Southern California, but they have connections. Even though they're based in New York, they have connections not only across the US, but globally too. So your access to other programs opens up by starting at this program.
Yeah, 100%. And just echoing that in the network that you create, I mean, ultimately, we need to ratchet down carbon across all sectors. You probably know that, or you wouldn't be on this call. And just the fact is, it's really hard to do, especially in an early stage startup. There's so much work to be done. Frankly, we need more people taking these risks and standing up and trying to make the impact, and especially the hardest stages of development where it's the most treacherous. So just given that, I mean, having a community of other climate warriors or startup founders, whatever you want to call it, we're just passionate about the cause, who you're going to have good weeks and bad weeks. And ultimately, we need you to not give up and keep fighting the good fight. So if you're willing to take a shot, this is a community that will help you, elevate you with a platform and a network. And really couldn't be more thankful for the relationships that we formed over the last year through that. As Lacey mentioned, it was as an early stage company, one of the initial stages or signals of validation that this is something worth doing and dedicating our lives to. And frankly, each step of the way, just getting bubbled up again, that when things get tough, you know you have a community of people around you who are in the same boat, maybe with different companies or a different side of it, but we're all in this together. So I just couldn't recommend the program enough. Hope you apply.
Thank you. And the founder journey can be a lonely one. So we know that community helps with that. And I can speak for my own experiences as founder. When I went through programs like Techstars, it was, those other founders keep you sane. At least it's nice to know you're not the only one dealing with different issues that come up, especially at a CEO level. I saw a question that was real fast. Yes, we're friends with their derivative. We had a couple companies apply, and I know they're waiting to hear back. Let me see. So, third derivative, Ramsey from Elementals on our board. We worked really hard to build pipeline relationships. So we have a lot of good relationships. And some of our, one of our founders got into Breakthrough Fellows. And so now they have 2 years sort of paid lab space and salary and all that. So all those different programs we're connected to. Founders receive non-dilutive capital. The program is remote, right? So it's really up to you how you decide to use that capital. So you're asking getting paid, but it's more of like the non-dilutive capital that comes in. Thank you. And then I saw a question about the amount of New York State versus in-state. Just that you got that answered for everybody. I think it was 3 of the 11 companies were based in New York. So yes, you really can be based somewhere else to get accepted into this program. You do not have to be based in New York State. However, again, we do view the companies through that New York State lens. So I guess like a third of the companies were from New York. Yeah, Devin said the same thing. So just making sure. Okay, I don't think I see, hey, another question did pop up. No, so while we do take 30 companies to the boot camp, part of the magic of the program is really having that one-on-one time with our team for coaching and that differentiated support, right? So helping you review grant applications, helping you, and there's only so many teams that we can support on at the high caliber in which we want to support. We say on average, we want to accept 10 teams. Last year we accepted 11. But that will be the number that we stick to, but we do take 30 through the boot camp. And our boot camp applicants, some are applying again this year because they've made more progress, but we also help those companies also get placed. So if you make it to the boot camp, you still get support. So 2 of our teams in the boot camp got into different Techstars programs. Another one got into Breakthrough. So we don't stop helping you, but the sort of hands-on support we like to provide our founders. There's only so many of us and so many hours in the day. Okay, I think Thank you all so much for joining us. Jeff, Lacey, thank you so much. I can't believe how quickly our time together flew by, our 6 months, but I'm really excited and proud for both of you and can't wait to see where your businesses do. Chris, I'll let you close out.
Yeah, seriously, even just like the short time that we've, it's been a month or two since since the last session. It's been cool to hear what you guys have been up to. I just dropped a ton of links in the chat. You can, there's our general email. You can send any more specific questions to, where to find more recordings, all that fun stuff. So when, yeah, if you feel necessary, you can copy and paste that. Other than that, I'll be sending out a recording and the slide deck to the email that you registered through Eventbrite. Other than that, thank you all so much for joining us, and have a good rest of your day.
Bye, everyone. Looking forward to seeing your applications.